Hi everyone, thanks for coming back for part 5. I'm going to try to wrap this up, but I just want to show you something that I haven't shown before back around Christmas when I did the video about Acts 27. I was looking at some images of the island of Malta, and I'm not seeing this image come up right now, so I'm just going to try to put in Malta and Jesus and see if I can get it to come up. Okay, so right at the I was going to try to show you the location of where it's located, but the statue is known as Christ of the Abyss. It says it's a submerged bronze statue of Jesus Christ by Guido Galletti, the original cast of which is located in the Mediterranean Sea off San Francisco between Camogli and Portofino. And so it's located, I'll show you where Portofino is located. Okay, Portofino is located right here, right at the very edge of Italy, where it begins to go into the sea. Over here where the peninsula begins, right at the edge of the peninsula, is where Portofino is located. And so this statue of Jesus, the underwater statue, is located in this area right here. Okay, and here's some images of the statue. I believe there's some other statues that are copies of this in other locations, but I think the original one is off the coast of Italy. And this statue is known as Christ of the Abyss, and I just happened to see an image of that when I was looking at pictures of Malta back when I first talked about Acts 27. Okay, and you probably don't need to know Italian to know what Portofino means, but I'll just go ahead and show you. Porto means port or porta. Porta means door. Okay, fino means till or up to. Okay, I just put end, and you can see end is fine or finale, so I believe fino is a form of that word. But in any case, it means till, up to, or as far as. So this is as far as it goes. Okay, and so that would be right here. That would be the end of the door. Okay, in John 10, starting with verse 7, Jesus said, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep." So Jesus said he's a door in John 10:7. He says it again in John 10:9. If you get down to John 10:23, this is where Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. Okay, and I've shown before how it's in Ezekiel 46 where it says that the gate of the inner court had been shut for 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be opened. In the day of the new moon it shall be opened. And then in verse 2 it says, "And the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate without, and shall stand by the post of the gate. And the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offerings, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate, and he shall go forth, and the gate shall not be shut until evening." And so before that, if you go back to Ezekiel 44, you see that the gate was shut. Okay, starting in verse 1, it says, "He brought me back by the way of the gate of the outward sanctuary, which looked toward the east, and it was shut. Then said the Lord unto me, This gate shall be shut, it shall not be open, and no man shall enter in by it, because of the Lord the God of Israel hath entered in by it, therefore it shall be shut. It is for the prince he shall sit in it to eat bread before the Lord. He shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate, and shall go out by the way of the same." Okay, and if you look at the word porch in Ezekiel 46, as I've mentioned before, you see that it's referring to Solomon's porch. And so I've made some videos about that. I'm not going to show all the images again, but you can see that it's talking about Solomon's temple. Okay, so Jesus is the prince who will open the door, and he is the one who has the key of David. Okay, you can see that in Revelation 3:7, where it says, "Unto the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David." Only Jesus is holy and true, and he's the only one that has the key of David. No one else can have that key. And it says, "He that openeth, and no man shutteth, and shutteth, that no man openeth." Then it goes on to say in verse 8, "I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name." So Jesus is the one who opens the door in verse 8. Okay, then in Matthew 16, verse 18, Jesus said, "And I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." And so Peter is given the keys, and anyone else who believes that Jesus is the Son of the living God, as Peter did, receives the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so the earthly representation of God's church would be Mount Zion. It's a representation of New Jerusalem, and it was represented by the city of David. So I just put in Mount Zion, city of David, temple. And so this would be the earthly representation of Mount Zion, which is the city of David. And so you can see some of the images that come up. So this is Mount Zion, and so this is the rock that God's church is built on, and this is the wall that surrounds the temple of God, the 144 cubits it's talked about in Revelation 21:17. This is just an earthly representation of that. Of course, the New Jerusalem is in heaven. Okay, and so I believe that the key is to turn everything upside down, just as Jonathan Kleck has been saying in his videos. I do believe that God has shown him the greatest mystery, that it's all about the DNA, and it's all about turning everything upside down. That's what will reverse the curse. But I believe that it's Jesus who has the key, and he's the one who will turn everything upside down, just as it shows in this video. And it's interesting that the pipe is actually in the form of a ship, because it was actually the bow of a ship that got wedged into a bay in Acts 27, which is what led me to understand what was being represented here in Acts 27. Starting in verse 29, it says, "And fearing lest we should have fallen upon the rocks, they cast 4 anchors out of the stern and wished for the day. And as the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship, when they had let down the boat into the sea under the color as they would have cast anchors out of the ship, out of the foreship, and Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, Except these abide in the ship, ye cannot be saved. Then the soldiers cut off the ropes of the boat and let her fall off. And while the day was coming, Paul besought them all to take meat, saying, This day is the 14th day that ye have tarried and continued fasting, taking nothing. Wherefore I pray you take some meat, for this is for your health. For there shall not a hair fall from the head of you. And I talked about how this was a representation of Holy Communion. It used the same word, a form of the same word that's used for taking communion. It says, and when he thus had spoken, he took the bread and gave thanks to God. The word thanks is the word Eucharist in the Greek. You can see that right here. It's the word Eucharisto, which is the word Eucharist. And he gave thanks to God in presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. And when they were all of good cheer, and they also took some meat, and we were in all in the ship 260 souls. And I had done some research on the number 276 to see if it was referring to DNA, and the article that I pulled up confirmed that's also a multiple of 12. And then it says, and when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and cast out the wheat into the sea. And when it was day, they knew not the land, but they discovered a certain creek with a shore, into which they were minded, if it were possible, to thrust in the ship. And when they themselves had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves into the sea, and loosed the rudder bands, and hoised up the mainsail to the wind, and made toward the shore. And falling into a place where two seas met, this is the representation of DNA, they ran the ship aground, and the forepart, or the bow, of the ship stuck fast and remained unmovable, and the hinder part was broken with the violence of the waves. Okay, and then I'm just going to skip to verse 44, and it says, and the rest, some on boards and some on broken pieces of the ship. And so it came to pass that they escaped all safe to land. And so they all escaped. And then the very next verse in 28, which represents 2018, it says, and when they were escaped, they knew that the island was called Melita. And the way I understood that this was representing the consummation of the covenant is because the word bay, okay, was actually the word creek, but this word right here has another meaning in the Greek. Okay, as you can see, it refers to a bay, but then there were some other images that came up that showed that it also refers to it's the name for the female body part, but usually it's preceded by the word woman, you know, if you want to distinguish to what type of this word you're talking about. But when it's just this word, it's usually referring to a bay. Okay, so I'll just show a little more of this scene again that was in the movie. This was a ship going into the, I guess you could call it a bay, and then it turns everything upside down. Before that, he had the pipe, and then the doors were opened. It made the shape of a cross. And then you have the capstone to the pyramid, which is what this is all about. Jesus is the head of the corner. And then it made a cross, and then there was another opening where they were able to get out. Okay, another scripture that Jonathan Kleck had pointed out in the video, and I can't find the part in the video where he said it, but I know he said it in the video. He said, he quoted John 8:32, where it says, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Of course, Jesus is the truth. And the Strong's number for the word truth is 225, but it's a form of Strong's number 227. And as I mentioned in my last video, the number 227 is right in the center of the measurement of the volume of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It also makes 2277, which is the date of the Exodus, and 778, which is the current Hebrew year. And remember, 227 was the ratio of cubits to furlongs. Okay, you can see that right here. It's 227, and then it's alternating 27s after that. Okay, so I think the mystery is pretty much solved now. Thanks for watching, and God bless you.